Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmadu wa nasalli ala Rasulil Kareem wa ba'd. We're going to talk about Ramadan is very close and it's almost there. And so one of the issues that come up is moon sighting. All right. And when to begin Ramadan, when to begin the Eid, when Ramadan, and things like those. And they are almost always been from the last 50, 60 years or so, or less, even less, these this masala has become a great issue among the Muslims, which should not have been. Unfortunate, and this is an unfortunate scenario. Before we talk about that, the very first thing we need to understand is what is the path of guidance, right? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leave or give to us? What did Rasulullah leave for us? And what Allah has mentioned as the path of guidance. So one of the thing is Kitabullah, and the other thing is Rijalullah. There are two things that need to be held on to in order to be on the right path or guided path. So what are these? There are a group of people that just say Kitabullah is enough for us. We have the guidance in there. We're gonna look at the book, see the instructions of Allah, and khalas. But obviously, it leaves out the other aspect. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never sent a kitab without a teacher, without a mu'allim along with that. So there have been mu'allimeen, there have been anbiya alayhi wasallam that were not given any new book, but there never been a book sent, a kitab sent without a mu'allim along with that. So mu'allim will go along with that. And so there's another group emerged among the Muslims that say Kitabullah and Hadith Rasulullah. That's enough for us. Or Sunnah Rasulullah, that's enough for us. But did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala suffice on these two? Are these two available? Are these two sufficient for guidance? Let's see what the Quran itself says. The most important surah of Quran is Surah Al-Fatiha, which we are made to recite many times every day. And in there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us to make a dua from Allah. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Ya O Allah, guide us to the right path. The mizaj, the temperament, the style of Quran is that Quran introduces istilahat or terminologies, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same Quran, Allah explained the meaning of those terminologies. Sometime in the same surah or the following ayat, sometimes in somewhere else, other parts of the Quran. So what is Siratul Mustaqim? What is the question would come, oh Allah, what is the right path? So in the very next ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is explaining the meaning of Ihdina Siratul Mustaqim. Now keep in mind, the Surah Fatiha is the gist of the whole Quran. It's the juice of all the Quran. It's the preface where everything is summarized very, very briefly. The whole message of Quran is summarized over there. So the mizaj of Surah Fatiha is briefness. And so, Tawheed, Risalat, Akhirat, guidance, everything is summarized in just either in a couple of words or 2-3 words or ayat or half an ayat or something like that. So when Allah talks about the right path, the brief answer which suits the nature and mizaj of Surah Fatiha would have been Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, Sirat al-Quran, or the of the Quran is the right path, and that is perfectly true, and that should have been the case, because that's the smallest and briefest answer. Or the other answer could be Siratul Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the path of the Rasul, the ta'limat, the teaching of the Rasul are in fact the teaching of the Quran. That should have been also sufficient over here. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, note, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did never use the word Kitabullah, never use the word Sunnat Rasulullah over here, even though those are the main two sources of Sharia. What did Allah use in here? Allah left the style of briefness, of succinctness in this surah, and took a different path and elongated the answer, lengthened the answer, because this was such an important question. The whole book was sent for hidayat. So that that must have been clarified. Allah wanted it to clarify it so that no doubts ever remain. So what is Siratul Mustaqim of Allah? Siratul Lazina an'amta alayhim. Such a long answer. I mean, it's not end. Does not end over here. Siratul Lazina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim walad-dhalin. Such a big answer to this question, because that's the most important question for which kitab are sent, for which anbiya are sent. Hidayat, al-hidayat, the path of guidance. Note Allah over here, Allah mentioned Rijalullah. Kitabullah comes with Rijalullah. You cannot understand Kitabullah without Rijalullah, the men, the knowledgeable men, the fuqaha, the salihin. What are an'amta alayhim? What are the people? The people, the path of the people on which Allah has, they've been blessed by Allah. Allah has descended His ni'mah. Those are the people. Their path is the path of guidance. Their path, Allah is guiding towards that. And so, oh Allah, the question comes: who are the Rijalullah? Who are the people? Who are the mun'am alayhim? Who are the ones who on whom they are? Who are the blessed ones on which the name of Allah is descended? So, in later part of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains that terminology as well. وَالَّذِينَ أَنَّمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. 4 groups of people Allah have identified as the munam alayhim, as the people who are blessed, on which Allah's ni'mat have been sent down. Number first is Anbiya alayhim salam. So in our case, where Rasulullah Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was the first one whose teachings will be used to understand Kitabullah. But Nabi, the Nabi does not, no single person remains forever in this dunya. They come and they have to leave. So Nabi Pak Sallallahu is no longer physically present in among us to guide us. But his sunnah are there. But then again, the same issue will come in the understanding of sunnah as the understanding of Kitabullah. The people will open Kitabullah and will differ in there. Everyone has different understandings. Not every person comes with the same level of understanding. People have their own domains. So Sunnah Rasulullah is there to explain, but Sunnah Rasulullah again will have different interpretations. So the Rijalullah continues, Anbiya, and then Shuhada, Siddiqeen, Shuhada, and Salihin. These 3 group of people are present in all era, always. In every era of time, you will find Siddiqeen, you'll find Shuhada, you'll find Salihin, the pious people, the knowledge, the people. Their understanding, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying over here, their understanding of Kitab al-Sunnah is the right understanding. You must follow their understanding. The people of the knowledge, the people who are pious, the people whose preference is akhirah and not of this dunya. Hold on to their understanding. Don't use your understanding. Don't use any Tom, Dick, and Harry's understanding of the Quran and Sunnah. All right. In another place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيَّ. Hold on to the path. Follow the path of those people who are attached to me, whose hearts are turned towards me, that is towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are always seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hold on, follow their path, hold on to their teachings. Among the Rijalullah, after Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the very first group of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made as the gauge of guidance, or as the metric of guidance, are the Sahaba Kiram Ajma'in radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. They are the people that Allah has made a yardstick. Their iman has been made aminu kama amanan nas. Their iman has been made, and their practice, their lifestyle has been made a yardstick of success and acceptance in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we look after Kitabullah, after the Sunnah, if we are still confused. And that also means that whatever we understand from Kitabullah and Sunnah Rasulullah, that understanding must match the understanding and the life of Sahaba Kiram Ajma'in radiyallahu. They were the very first students of Rasulullah. They were the companions. They were with him. They understood his gestures. They observed him and listened to him in his gatherings. We are 1450 years apart. They were the people who were there. their lifestyle, their practice, their choices, their preferences are the key ones in the understanding of the Kitab and Sunnah. We make a very significant mistake in there. We say, oh, Kitab Allah and Sunnah Rasul, the Hadith Rasul is enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. You have to have the proper understanding of them as well. If you have Kitab Allah and Sunnah Rasul, but you misunderstand them, that's you are misguided. We are all misguided then. We have to look at the guided people, and the very first step is Sahaba, and then the Tabi'een, and then the Tabi'een, and then the Fuqaha of the Ummah al-Muslimah. All the time they're continuing, the chains continue. That is the one. The practice of the scholars of the Muslim Ummah throughout the ages. Because one of the hadith Rasulullah says, my whole ummah will never be misguided. Always, in every era, there will be people who will be following the right sunnah and the right practice. So it cannot happen that after 1450 years, we come up with a different understanding of Quran and Sunnah and say, oh, look, knowledge was not present at the past, but hadith has now just been gathered, and we are in the most knowledgeable area, na'uzubillah, and we discard the understanding and knowledge of all before us, and we deviate from the path of the Muslimin. The ummah of the last 1450 years, that's just totally misguided concept. In other ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَن يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولَ مِن بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ الْهُدَى وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ نُوَلِّهِ مَا تَوَلَّى وَنُصْلِحِ جَهَنَّمَ سَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. That whoever has been given and shown the right path, the guidance, and still after exposure to that, they follow what is against the trend of the Ummat al-Muslimin. They follow the practice that is against the practice of the mainstream Muslims. The mainstream Muslims, they leave the path of the mainstream Muslims. They start something their own interpretations. Allah expresses anger and says, we leave them, turn towards whatever they have turned, and we'll throw them into Jahannam. So the practice of the mainstream of the Ummah, that's the path of guidance. And so when it comes to moonsighting, there are lots of issues that have developed in the last 50 years or so, 50, 60 years or so. They were never before in the Ummah. The Ummah never differed in these issues before. These are the birth and the product of the modern age. When we have started migrating towards Western countries, science has been taken as almost like a godly thing. I'm a scientist myself, other than the Islamic scholar, I'm a scientist myself. I know how science has developed. I know what goes on with that. It's not a godly thing. It's full with mistakes. It's full with mistakes. So with the invention of scientific equipments and stuff, we start to bring science at a higher level, na'uzubillah, than Sharia or something. So no, let's use, astronomical calculations tell that, moon, this is the birth of the moon. Let me tell you one thing, brothers. Science is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the inventions of science are in fact the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not the creation of humans. They are the inventions they are the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through man. The intellect given to man through which inventions are made is by Allah. So Allah has, in the book of Allah, in Quran, Allah has called all of these inventions that will continue to come up, Allah has called them His takhliq. Allah has referred them to Himself. So they are blessing. No matter who invents what it is, they are the creation of Allah. They are the blessing for the mankind, as long as they are used in guidance with the Sharia. So science is a servant. Science is not superior. It cannot lead. It has to follow the Sharia commandments. As long as it lives, it is used as a subordinate of Sharia, it's fine. It's good. It's a means of blessing. At the very moment we take science to go up above Sharia and take over Sharia, and that's where it becomes a source of misguidance. The other mistake most of us run into is that we consider the Eidain, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, as some things as occasions of celebrations, as a cultural thing. They're not cultural occasions. They're not occasions of just social celebrations or something. The two Eid are ibadat. They are not just regular events, my friends. They are ibadat, and so its utmost precaution must be taken for the determination, and the Sharia rule should be followed when deciding when Eid should be and when Ramadan should be, because all of these are ibadat. They are not social events. That's one big mistake we make. We take it to be cultural, Muslim culture. It's not Muslim culture, it's ibadah. It's part of the deen. Second mistake we make in determining when a month should begin is we look at astronomical calculations. All right, scientific calculations. Oh, this is the time of the birth of the moon, and this. Remember that all of these terminologies are the terminologies of astronomy. Sharia has its own terminologies, and those terminologies must be adhered to very strictly. So it's not about the presence of the moon in the heavens. It's always there. The sky always has moon. Moon doesn't go away. So the birth is a different meaning. It's always there. The moon never dies and never borns and never takes birth or whatever. It's not about the presence of moon. It's about the ru'ya and the shahada of the moon, the visibility of the moon by human eye. That is the most important thing. Not through astronomical equipments, but by human eye. And anything that just aids the human eye passively, like telescopes are okay and allowed because they're like they're like glasses. Like I'm wearing glasses, and these glasses are passive equipment. They're not active equipment. It's not adding anything to the data that is coming through. It's just letting the rays go through, and it corrects them a little bit. There is no electronic equipment. There's no power to it. There's no processing. It's not processing this visual signal that is going through it. It's a passive piece of equipment. That's okay. You can use telescopes. You can use glasses, but using calculations, computerized stuff, and figuring out, oh, we have calculated and that should be enough, that has not been considered as credible in Sharia. And there are reasons. There is wisdom behind all of that thing. The deen should be kept as simple as possible. Scientific equipments are present at this age. They may not be available in every part of the earth. All right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to keep the important ibadat like salah, like saum, and the determination of the months, because it's tied to ibadat. Allah wanted to keep them as simple as possible, so that in Qiyamah, no one can come and no one can give it an excuse. Oh Allah, I did not have internet available where I was, so I couldn't figure out when the Ramadan was. I had no access to Google, or I had no idea there was no observatory over there, so I couldn't figure out when the moon would come. No. There's nothing like that. We're not bound to anything like that. The utmost simplicity in every commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Go ahead and see inside the moon. If you see it, it's there. If you don't see it, forget it. And so what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? The hadith of in a hadith it says that لا تصوموا لا تصوموا حتى تروه ولا تفطروا حتى تروه. Particularly mentioned about the visually sighting the moon, and these are the riwayat of Bukhari, Sahih al-Bukhari. الشهر 29. A month is 29 days, all right, generally, or 30 days. الشهر 29 ليلة فلا تصوموا حتى تروه فإن غم عليكم فأكملوا العدة 30. A riwayat of Sahih al-Bukhari, and says Rasulullah is saying, look, the month is either 29 days or 30 days, and one of these two. It cannot be 28, it cannot be 31. So do not start fasting and do not break fasting unless you see the moon, unless you sight the moon. Ru'ya means looking through the eyes directly. That's called ru'ya. All right, where your eyes are directly involved, not through a computer screen or something. فَإِنْ غُمَّ عَلَيْكُمْ. and if the moon hides from you. Now the word ghumma is implying in it that Rasulullah is acknowledging that the moon is there on the sky. It's just not. It's not. The only thing is not. It's not visible. It's hidden by cloud or something, right? It's hidden by cloud. So if it's ghumma alaykum, if it has been cloudy, but the moon is there, but it's cloudy, you cannot see it, then it's considered to be as not sighting the moon. And so if you're not sighting the moon, فَأَكْمِلُ الْعِدَّةَ ثَلَاثِينَ, you will complete 30 days, right? You went out to watch the moon or sight the moon on the 29th of the night of the 29th, and you know it's there. Maybe you're not. You're sure it's there, but it's cloud. You cannot see it. So Rasulullah in that case is saying that complete 30 days. Do not go for calculations, because month is either 29 or 30. When you complete 30 days, after that, you know for sure it cannot be 31. So the month will end after that. So that's another of the mistake that we make. Another mistake that we make commonly is if we are not able to sight the moon, for example, and it was been cloudy or something or whatever, and then so we take it to be a month of 30, and then the day after that will be the 1st of Ramadan or the 1st of Shawwal or something, whatever, for the Eid. Very commonly we hear brothers, and they look at the moon the next night when it comes up and say, oh, it's a very big moon. It's definitely a moon of the 2nd of Shawwal or 2nd of Ramadan or whatever. It doesn't look like the moon of the 1st. We made an error, and so we should either do qaza of the fast or whatever it is, or we made one extra psalm. This is not a new thing. It's part of the human fitrah, human nature. In Sahih Muslim, a hadith comes in which it was decided just like that, and it was cloudy, and it was decided we'll complete the 30 days or so. After that, on the 1st of the month, when some of the Sahaba, they went out to do Umrah, and on the way they sighted the moon and they started talking just like this among themselves, because they saw the moon bigger and brighter as compared to the moon of the 1st, and they said, look, it looks like it's a moon of the 2nd, and it's not a moon of the 1st, and they started commenting and discussing all of that. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, who was a faqih, a great scholar, and a Mufassir al-Azam, his title was al-Mufassir al-Azam, one of the greatest Mufassir. And he was a faqih of Medina. And so he eventually, the things reached him that eventually that this is the case. The people are discussing like that. And he said, when did you actually saw it? They said, we saw it on this whatever day. He said, Rasulullah has said that whichever date you saw the moon first, that will be considered as the 1st of that month. And not to talk like that, and the talking like that is not permissible, that this is the moon of the 2nd and this looks big and whatever it is. So these are some of the issues we must. Another big mistake what we make nowadays, because the communication gap has reduced and now the whole world is a village at the moment, we start getting the news of sightings from Indonesia, sighting from some Saudi Arabia, sighting from this and that place. There is nowhere in the hadith, nowhere in the not just in hadith, but in a period of 1400 years in the past, that the mainstream ummah never went for global sighting at all. I mean, Muslims have ruled over vast regions of the world. The caliphate had a big span. Never could you cite an example where any time in the area Muslims actually went for global moon sighting. This is the fitna and the bid'ah of the modern times. Always there has been local moon sighting. The concept of sometimes is small, sometimes it's larger. These days, by consensus, the locality includes the geographical boundaries of the country. Okay, there's still local moon sighting. And if it's difficult to even get witnesses from the whole country, then the ulama, fuqaha, they say, reduce your locality. Okay, but it's never global, because when you move from country to country, you move time zones, and that has a danger of resulting a month which is either less than 29 days or more than 30 days, because the time zones differ. And okay, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his Rasul did never make Saudi Arabia as the markaz for moon sighting. All right, it's a markaz for Hajj. It's a markaz of the direction of where we pray and prostrate. It's not a markaz of moon sighting. What Allah and Rasul did not make, please do not introduce into the deen. Don't we realize what the grave sin we are doing? Who entitled anyone today to say, take Saudi Arabia as the markaz for sighting, and whatever sighting, whenever they sight, we will celebrate on that, and we will start a Ramadan. And who authorized anybody to do that? That's a bid'ah that's a big bid'ah and sin in the deen. Where you must have an evidence. Show us the evidence. Show us the evidence in Kitabullah. Show us the evidence in Sunnah Rasulullah, in Hadith. Any one Hadith, even Zaif Hadith, bring it. It's not there. Show the practice of Sahaba. It's not there. Show the practice of Tabi'in. It's not there. Show the practice of Tabi'in. No. Show the practice of the last 1400 years. Never. You will not find a single one. Yet people are following their desires, and they're changing the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'll show you one last hadith before I finish off. And it's exactly on this issue. I mean, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all such things in the past as well. So just we can get guidance from whoever who has guidance in his destiny will get guidance from there. So in the time of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, Hazrat Quraib, Sayyidina Quraib was a Sahabi. He went to Sham, Syria, from Medina. Okay, and he came back and he said, look, people of Sham, they saw the moon one day ahead of us, before us, and they started Ramadan, and we saw it one day later, and so we started late. I think we should do a qaza of fast, and we should follow along with them. Sayyidina Abdullah Abbas Anuma said, are you sure? Did you check? Did you testify? So Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah was the governor over there. So did you testify from me? Yes. So Muawiyah declared the moon one day ahead of us, and we should do that. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas rejected it, says, no, we're not going to do that. Sayyidina Quraib asked him, don't you consider Amir Muawiyah's decision to be credible, and his witness to be credible? He says, that's not the thing. He's credible. His decision is credible. He's a faqih and everything. He's a sahabi. He's a adil. But this is not what Nabi Pak has taught us. These were his words in the hadith, close meaning of the words. This is local moon. That is local moon sighting. It's referring to local moon sighting. This is the teachings of Rasulullah, what Allah's Messenger has taught us. And Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas totally ignored whatever that happened in there. And people get into the mistake of wahdatul, unity of the Muslim. Well, unity is not always the case. Well, we don't pray our salat in the times following the times of other countries, do we? Our Fajr salat is not at the same time as the Saudi. Why don't we unite in there as well? It's nonsensible. Similarly, the moon is also nonsensible. Every locality has its own moon, just like every locality has its own sun. All right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah, that is the commandments of Allah. Rope means commandments of Allah. And do not separate out. Do not differ. Do not turn into sects. And people often cite this hadith in the wrong context. Okay? And say, no, we should be united. Well, the mode of unity is the commandment of Allah. We can only be united on the commandments of Allah. We can never be united against the commandment of Allah. That's one thing to be sure. So there is a moon sighting organization, the Ulama Council of Australia, who regularly cites every month the moon. The moon must be sighted every month. You cannot just wake up on Ramadan and say, "Oh, we've decided moon." You'll be out of sync. You lose it. So it's called www.moonsightingaustralia.info. The link, inshallah, will also be shared in the description of the video over here. And they are very, very particular about the following the Sunnah method of the taking Shahada and everything, and deciding about the moon of every month. It's obligatory on us to differentiate and understand between those people who are deviating away from the path of guidance and sticking on to the Rijalullah, the practice of the mainstream of Ummat. Okay, that's what a lot of people do. They take either the Kitabullah or the Sunnah of Rasulullah and they disconnect the Rijal from there. And then they are free to form whatever opinions they like and they convey it to people. We cannot do that. We have to take the opinions of the Rijalullah and follow along with the interpretation of the Sahaba, the interpretation of the Tabi'in and the mainstream Ummah. That interpretation must be stick on to and adhere to. All right. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to the right path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our hearts for it. Okay. And join and make unity on the Sunnah, on the Kitabullah, not against the Ahkam, not on the Bid'at, not on something on our wishes. If we cannot find any evidence in Quran or Sunnah of something, if we cannot find any evidence in the whole of the mainstream Ummah for the last 1400 years, there is no right, there's no authority that can decide that something definitely against the Sunnah and Bid'ah. We must be aware of that and protect our Iman and protect our Deen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.